Right, the next thing down is Supplier Setup. So within Supplier Setup, this is where you set up the basic information for all of your different suppliers. Now the information is pretty basic in terms of the name of the company, the address, the contact, and some phone numbers and email as well. Over on the right-hand side, you can also put in your account number that you have with them, and that information will show up within the inventory system. Also, your payment terms as well. So in here, I've got COD, if I don't have other ones in here, but you can put in like a net 30, 16, 90, that kind of thing. Also, ship via, and if there's any different methods of how it's delivered, then we have our shipping information in here as well, and you can use conventional ones for that. Over on the Advanced tab, you can also identify on a per supplier basis what taxes they may be exempt from. Especially if your suppliers are coming in from a different state, then the taxes may be a little bit different based on that particular supplier, because maybe he's coming in from Illinois and you're in Indiana or something like that. So you can identify as far as the exemption of taxes in certain cases. Also, show linked inventory items as well. This identifies what items are linked to that particular supplier right now if you're going in and modifying this. As we go further into it, you're going to be actually assigning these to it, and I'll show you how to go about doing that. And then finally, we got Warehouse Setup. So within Warehouse Setup, this is where you can set up multiple warehouses again. So we have one that's set up by default, which is the Warehouse General. On here, you can assign it some kind of a reference number for reporting purposes, and then you have the main contact for that warehouse, if applicable, and it may be off-site as well. So if that is the case, you could have an address and a phone number and things like that. Take a look down here. Copy address from the Company Info tab. Right, Company Info tab is what you have set up initially within Administrator Setup System, and then there's a tab within there called Company Info, and you put in the address of the establishment. And if you just want to pull that in because the warehouse is located within my establishment, just click on that and it will populate these fields for you. All right, the next thing we got is inventory. This is the actual inventory manager system that you would use for the PixelPoint system. And so in here now, what we're going to do is just walk through these various applications that we've got within here, and I'll explain each one of them. The first thing we've got are all these pull-down menus across the top. And as you can see within here, anything that you've got within the blue bar will also be available within any of these as well. Now, along with this, we have things such as options when you're setting up your inventory. So, for example, allow for back orders, yes or no. When it comes to your purchase orders, they may have things on back order. Do you want to keep the purchase order open, or do you need to close it off anyway? Auto received purchase order. Do you want to have that allowed on there so that you've got, when your inventory comes in, automatically receive it into the system, or pause it and I have to actually physically receive it myself after I go through and inspect it and make sure it's all good. Only show supplier items. No or yes. Okay, so within here, this has to do with the items that are specific to the supplier. If, for example, I have pickles and I normally don't get pickles from ABC Company, then I may or may not want to have that show up within the potential list. I only want the things that are unique to that particular supplier when I identify that supplier on the purchase order. Calculate suggested ordering quantity. Yes or no. So again, this is whether the system will be intuitive enough to do this or not. Then you can identify that, or you can just leave it as it is, in which case then you have to physically put in that number yourself. Pause inventory depletion. You can do it from here as well. There's several areas you can do it from. And then we've got purchase orders with all of our different things here, and we'll take a look at those shortly. They're all down here. We also have stock as well. So within here we've got stock levels, physical counts, and transfers, and so on. Again, all this stuff is identified within here. You may find on yours that add batch recipe and add spillage and waste, which I have over here, these may not show up on yours. And if that is the case, it's just a matter of adding them in because they're newer functions or occasionally used functions. So to do that, just go to your blue bar, and just like within back office, right-click, customize toolbar, and then from there, just go down to the items that you want and just drag those two items up into here. Within window, show active records only, and help, and then programs not applicable here. So you've got all of these different things. Now, coming across the main taskbar here, as I said, you can add in those additional ones. We've also got things such as new purchase order. Create a new purchase order, and that purchase order then goes to your supplier and says, this is what I want. We also have receive and cancel purchase orders as well. Input new stock. You use this when you're creating your initial inventory on the system. So what you do is you create the stock items, and then you go into input new stock, and this is where you're putting quantities, applying quantities to those stock items. Stock levels, just to take a look at what your levels are, your physical counts to compare what you've actually got versus what the system says you have. Transfers between one warehouse and another. Stock supplier setup, if you select on this, it's the supplier setup just like we took a look at earlier on. It's just available within here as well. Auto purchase order, this will create an automated purchase order for you. And recipe setup. And this recipe setup is similar to the one that's used within product setup, only it's a little more comprehensive. What you can do is you just select on whatever the item happens to be, and then from here you can identify which stock items go into that. So you're setting up the recipe within here. And this information is carried across to product setup within the recipe tab. It just offers you a little more comprehensive information. Then adds village and waste and add batch. Now coming down below that, we have Ask Inventory Manager, and this is where it will show you all of the outstanding purchase orders or closed purchase orders or warehouse transfers that reside within the system. So in here, for example, show active and back order purchase orders. Of type, orders or transfers, being warehouse transfers. Orders for, and then you can choose a specific supplier and a specific date. And if you're looking for a specific purchase order and you know what the number is, just select on that and punch it in. And then from here, you should be able to come up with all kinds of stuff. Okay, I really don't have anything in here because I haven't been using it. But within here, you'll have a list of all of your different purchase orders or warehouse transfers that reside on the system. You select on one, you can double-click on it, and it will retrieve it up. Or you can select on it and then receive PO or whatever you want to do with this. All right, so what we're going to do right now, we've got some stock items in there, but we really haven't created much of anything else. So the first thing we're going to do is input new stock. So I'm going to select on this. And it's going to come up with this form. Now, the nice thing about this is that we really don't use a lot of different screens for doing things in here. If we can keep it as uniform as possible, by all means, we'll do that and just make it simple. And so what you're looking at here is basically a purchase order. And the only difference is that this particular purchase order will put inventory into it, the system right away. So the way you do it is as follows. You come into the site and they say, okay, I want to do my inventory. So the first thing you need is a list of all of their recipe items. You need also a list of all their suppliers. And you need them to go through their warehouse and give you a physical count of what they physically have in their establishment at this time for each one of these stock items. The next thing you want to do is, after you've created the stock items on the system, is start applying some quantities to it. So in here, we say, for example, ABC Supplier. I'll choose them, and there's all their information populating within here. Warehouse 2, so in this case, I'll say Warehouse General that this is going to go to. Here's where it all goes to. And within here, we also have information over the right-hand side in terms of when you need to receive it and so on like that. This is used in conventional purchase order, but otherwise it will be for immediate time in this particular application. Coming down below that, we can add on our inventory items. And within here, it will bring up a list of all of the items that pertain to that supplier. That's what that setting was, is that just show me the things that are unique to this supplier. If you do need to override this because now ABC Supplier now carries pickles, then I can select on Show All Items from All Suppliers, in which case then pickles will show up, and I can actually select pickles and have that added to this purchase order, and from this point on, they'll be added into this list as well. Now in this case, I'm going to order some eggs, so I'm going to select on Egg, and okay, so there's eggs that I'm ordering right now. And so in this, it shows the reference code for that. The next thing we have is the description of egg. On order. So within here right now, how many do I want to order and receive? All right, so it's pulling it from past orders here. But on this, if you select on many of these fields, you'll come up with a 3-dot box. What it will do is allow you to make changes to it. So I'm going to say, for example, 5. So ordered 5, received 5, for example, 5 crates. And remember, this is the initial one that, like, this is what you currently got, and you're going to put this directly into your inventory. Right? And with this as well, I may not want it all in units of crate. So if I select on this, I can change to any one of those levels of measurement when I'm applying this. The next thing over here is my cost each. Okay, so what does it cost me per crate of eggs? So in this, I'm going to say, for example, it's going to be $5. And so from there, I've got 5 crates of eggs. It's going to cost me a total of $25. If there is any taxes that I need to apply, then I can select on those as well. They will populate down here accordingly. And along with that as well, what is the status? It's active, or it can be on back order or something like that. That's all handled on a conventional purchase order. In this case, they're default to active because this is going directly into it. With all this information in here, and if there's any additional things you need to add in, you can do that as well. On a conventional purchase order, you can also put in a comment down here as well, and then from here, print to, in which case then you can preview it up on the screen, you can send it to a printer, and you can also send it out via like a PDF or an HTML or something like that and have it emailed out in a kind of like a file format. In this case, actually, I'll just show you a preview. So there's what a purchase order looks like on the PixelPoint system when you print one out. It would show up something like that. Okay, and so closing on that, but we're going to put this directly into our inventory. So we take all this and we select on Receive Purchase Order. Process in inventory. Now if I say no, it'll save it as a purchase order within the system. But in this case, I'm going to say yes, and you would do it most times for this particular function. In which case then, that is now put directly into the system, and now I have a supply of eggs actually in my inventory. Now coming over to, here, let's do new purchase order. I'm going to create a new purchase order for, and I'm going to order something from a supplier. This is not something I have in stock right now. So on this, I select on my supplier. I'll say it's this supplier. And on this, there's all my information. And I can identify in here as far as what date and time that I really need it for. And then coming down below that, I have a list of all my stuff. I'm going to order some potatoes from XYZ supplier. How many crates? I'm going to say 2 crates. So there's 2 crates. What is the cost each on those? Now, in this, if I select on the 3-dot box, it will actually go in and bring up a history of what I've paid for these potatoes. And you can pull up from that if you wish. Or it will, if nothing else, it will show you, hey, the price has gone up. Suddenly, what happened here? But in this case, I don't have any, so I'm going to say, for example, $5 per crate of potatoes. And again, I can do all my taxes and stuff like that. And with all this done, then I can print it off, or I can send it as a file in an email. And also I can select on Save PO. Okay, so here's a closed PO, which is the one I put directly into the warehouse, and then here's the active one, which is an outstanding purchase order that I have on the system. So that's how you go about creating it. When you're ready to actually use it, you select on it, and notice now I've got Receive PO, Cancel PO. If you select on Receive PO, then it'll just bring it up on the screen. You can make any last-minute changes, because maybe, for example, as far as you ordered 2, but you've got maybe 1 on back order, for example, or maybe 1 fell off the truck or something like that. So you can change around as far as the difference between how many were received and how many were actually ordered.